What is up, Google Cloud friends and family? Super excited to be back here on the live stream this afternoon, and I'm joined by two awesome people, Roddy and Kevin, who are going to be sharing some cool things that we're doing in the languages side for Google Cloud developers. I guess also Google developers, right?
Yeah.
Or any developer.
Yeah, any developer, yeah.
Let's talk about any developer. So, what are we going to be showing everyone here today?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about people that have been building with like cross-platform type of applications is we have this framework from Google called Flutter, and it can compile to Android, iOS, desktop, and web. And one of the big things that's made that possible is Dart, because it can compile to all these different runtimes and formats. And people who are trying to build these applications really like not having to build a backend. So Firebase has been really popular. And so one thing we're really excited about launching is support for Dart for Firebase Functions. So as a Flutter developer, I can take any code that I'm running in my Flutter app, move it back to the backend, and be able to just still write Dart without having to write Node.js or Go or anything else.
That's super cool. So I actually have deployed Flutter apps.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. One of the things I love, right, to the point of like cross-platform compatibility, it's like, hey, we want a web app.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
You want an Android app.
Yeah.
Most Android apps are Flutter, if I remember correctly, anyway, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm. Actually, yeah, I think the stat was a plurality of new apps on the Play Store are, if you look at all the frameworks, a plurality are Flutter. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it speaks to the portability, right? Because, we talked about single page apps for a long time, but same thing still applies. Like cross compilers are getting better, but still taking advantage of like language native things is super cool. In particular, if you think about LLM support and all that.
Yeah.
So Kevin, why is this so cool?
Oh my gosh. It's crazy because I've been working with the team, months now, getting ready for this launch.
You're too close to it, that's what you're telling me.
Yeah, it's like, where to begin? Like one of the favorite things, so, we did a bunch of work with Flutter. There's always this trade-off, usually when you think about multi-platform solutions. React Native is one, and Cordova, there's been a whole history of them, right?
Yep.
And the big thing was just performance. So you want the benefit of a cross-platform solution, but you also want the performance and the fidelity of a cross-platform solution. Yep. So it turns out that actually we've had a solution that does this forever, and these are the game engines. So like, Unity and what's the other one?
Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, right?
Yeah.
So you can build and deploy the exact same pixels. And actually in some cases for those, you actually deploy to web too, with WebAssembly. But how do they do that? They do their own engine. So they ship their engine down, and then you can get the exact same rendering fidelity across all the platforms. So Flutter took that trick. So we have our own engine, we call it Impeller, and we deploy it to all platforms. And even on the web, we compile it to WebAssembly.
Yep. And
then on top of that, instead of deploying to a scripting language, we actually compile Dart down to a native binary. So native ARM assembly code, for Android and iOS, even RISC-V, frankly. And on the web, we can compile to JavaScript and WASM. And so you get complete fidelity, because it's the exact same engine everywhere. So you get the same experience on iOS and Android, and web, and desktop, and embedded. I think we talked about too using Flutter for like their infotainment systems now.
Yeah, I think there's an infotainment one for cars over in Learn, right? Which
LG
is
cool. Using Flutter for their TVs to do their UI. So we run everywhere. And so there's two interesting things, I think. One is Roddy's point, which is one nice thing about JavaScript. I mean, there's lots of good things about JavaScript, but you can run it on in the browser and on the server. And so people really love doing this for Firebase. So I can write my web experience, I can share code, my node bits. And so you want to do that with Dart. So why is Dart interesting on the server? Well, it turns out the things that you want in a language for mobile apps, you want small binaries, so it installs quickly, small install. You want really fast startup. You want really consistent frame rates. We do that with Dart. So you can make tiny ARM binaries. You can deploy to your Android, iOS, app stores, whatever else. So it turns out all those nice things are also exactly what you want for a functions framework, for serverless stuff. So you can compile, like on my Mac here, I can compile my server app, and the Dart SDK is like 200 megs, the thing's zipped up, and you have, dozens of dependencies. We can get down for like the demos, I can show later, to 10 megabyte binary. And on my Mac, actually, I can compile a Linux binary for AMD 64 and deploy that to Cloud Run. And so what does that mean? I can deploy a binary, in some cases, like 25 seconds from when I say deploy, I'll do the native compile and push up. I'm not waiting for Docker. I don't have to have Docker on my machine.
It also like starts up immediately because it doesn't have to like warm up.
Yeah, there's no warming up the JIT because it's an 8OT, binary.
Yeah.
And the fact that it starts up so fast, so we're talking about seconds to deploy, on the order of 20 or 30 seconds to deploy, code starts in milliseconds, and that means you can do scale to zero. You don't have to have, I think a lot of people like to keep instances around. I mean, some cases it might be interesting, but generally you can scale down to zero because literally like the first start will be on the order of less than a second.
Yeah.
And so that's all nice just from a deployment perspective. And then from an engineering perspective, it's super useful because now your developers don't have to switch between Dart and JavaScript for the backend or Dart and Go. They can just stay in Dart.
Yeah.
So all your business rules, your business logic, like you can stay in Dart. And so that's the other big thing. So we've done work obviously with the Firebase team. The cloud team, it's called OS only deploys that lets you just binary zip up to deploy. And then we did a bunch of work to build all the libraries. So we have all the code so you can do Firestore and Google Storage and authentication and all those things. We've had them for years, frankly, for client apps, for the Flutter client apps. Now we have the mirror set on the admin SDK on the back end. So you can, call Google APIs, do storage, do auth, do Firestore all on the back end.
And in an authenticated way, so you don't have to open it like reading to a bucket from the client side. You can just like protect that all in a function and like have one little API call.
You mean the app doesn't get owner rights?
Correct. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, like it's always
lock it out.
It's always tempting, right? You want to get it working. You get your Flutter app running, and you're like, oh, well, I'll just put my service key in my bundle.
Yeah,
it's like the last thing you want to do, right? So like,
like in retrospect, that might not have been a great idea.
Yeah, probably not.
In retrospect.
In retrospect. And so what's Firebase does all this work. We have auth. Is it app verify? What's it called?
App check.
App check. Like, so you get all that benefit on native and web to make sure that people calling your services are actually running your app. And then you keep your service keys. It's Google Cloud. So you have your metadata server and all the authentication service accounts, and that's all taken care of for you.
Yeah. One of the things I think is actually pretty compelling that you talk about, how many apps do we have which are actually bundles of languages?
Oh God, yeah.
So take, there's mobile, right? Where to your point, you're probably in minimally 2 languages. In cloud, you're arguably in between like 2 and 5.
Yeah.
Because I still count Shell as a programming language.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Which we use for all of our deployment stuff, right? You have Terraform, you have your backend, you have your front end.
And potentially different languages for each.
Yeah, you have a database stuff somewhere. How can so I'm a developer, right? I'm new to Dart, but maybe I have some Dart and I have all these backend things. How would I approach kind of thinking about using this to maybe start compiling back down to a single language? Am I taking one piece, so I want to do a big bang?
So I think one of the ways to think about it is like you want isomorphic kind of creation of your application. So when you have like a back end and a front end, you want to try to move that layer to more of the front end being able to be called from the same language. Like you see this on like Next.js, people want to write the API calls in JavaScript so they can call from the front end. Well, that allows you to do that with Flutter and even just like Dart with HTML as well. So you can write basically your API server for your front end in Dart, and then you may still be talking to Go for like other microservices and parts of your application, but you can have that really nice type safety, and like anything that goes over the RPC is going to have the same classes, the same types of logic on both ends.
And one of the things that I do love about Dart is LLMs are pretty good at writing it.
Yeah. And what
turns out.
Yeah. And Kevin has a really cool point like in our talk tomorrow, but he's like, one of the nice things about Flutter is you think about what you want to build first, and then you pick the platform second. And I think that's just like a really nice way to think about it, because like you can go to a Raspberry Pi or a binary like API only server or on some embedded device or any type of platform, and that's always like a secondary decision after you start to craft your application.
Yeah, one of the things I love about it, was working with the GD on some sample apps, and hey, do you want to deploy to phone? Well, like maybe eventually.
Yeah. At some point. Yeah.
At some point, yeah. But hey, we want to get something started and we want to test it. Well, hey, we have web already, so like let's use web, or let's compile natively like onto like an ARM binary. But I don't have to like pick.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like, hey, I know that it's going to be Android and these things. Like I gotta like pick the end state. Like I can work up to it.
Well, even like just from a pure Flutter productivity perspective, obviously, our friends at Apple and our friends in the Android team, they do good work on the emulator model, whatever else.
Yeah.
It's still a bit of a pain to like deal with starting up the emulator and like the user experience. And so we have a lot of Flutter folks. And obviously, I always say, make sure you test and validate on the devices you're going to go to. I'd never say skip that step. But just from a development perspective, you're just noodling, like use a Flutter native desktop app on your Mac or whatever else, and use that for your debugging. And so, there's no going through the emulator, like it's just local, and you could iterate so fast. I mean, usually what I do is I'll use web for the exact same reason. So like I can iterate super fast. Chrome is my, my development environment. And then later it's like, okay, I use the Chrome view to, make it look like a pixel thing. And then later it's like, okay, let's do native. And like, it's an easy thing to jump to.
And we have hot reload now too, so it's a bit faster.
I do something very similar actually. So it's like, cool. Hey, like I've never talked to you before, but I do know how to actually use these things.
There's no shame.
We have a demo.
So this is
let's show this in action because I think this let's see see the reality.
Cool.
Right. So are we going to start with the local bits first?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about this launch of Dart with Firebase Functions is we're supporting full emulators. So you can test everything locally and get it working with just like starting it up. So you have access to Firestore and storage and auth and all the other things that you might be used to with the emulators. But now we're also adding that support for Dart Functions. So right here, we're just going to like run it locally first.
Well, I love the emulator thing, by the way, because if you think about doing LLM development, hey, I want to put all this in a sandbox.
Totally.
You have to have the emulator there. Otherwise, like now you're talking dial out, dealing with all these other things that like you can deal with it. Like why if I just want to get features launched?
Yes. Totally. And you can do this like on an airplane, wherever you want.
So quickly, I just want to show like the code structure, which is gets to the benefit, right? So the model is, of course, you have your app code, and this is your Flutter code, and you have your server
here,
code.
This is just the standard,
This is a
standard setup for an app.
This is like a standard mono repo setup for an app where you have like a shared folder, a server folder that you're going to deploy separately, and then the Flutter app itself.
And then, the punchline for us is like, this notion of shared. And so I should just show the code really quick, and then I can, so in terms of my terminal, so I've started running this. This is, Firebase emulator start like we're used to, and it's running locally. If you look through here, you can see that it's actually, doing the precompile and Dart bits.
And anybody using Firebase should be very familiar with this. Like, hopefully it's not too different.
Yeah, there's no surprises there. And the same thing on the Flutter side. So I'm doing somewhere here, Flutter run. Looks like there might be a little issue. This might be just dev stuff, because I know the app runs running. So
never demo the product live.
Never, I know. So this is probably the world's most boring Flutter app, because it's just a QR code and a bunch of numbers. But it is, Flutter and Firebase. So if you scan this code, and obviously folks at home, this is not going to do anything because it's a QR code to a local host. So they click on the image. This is what you're loaded.
Okay.
So this is Flutter and Firebase, and we'll show why Firebase in a second here. And they actually bring it over. Is that good? That's good. There we go.
Yeah.
And so this is a different port. This is my server port. So this is actually my Dart binary running. Okay. And it's being proxied through the emulator in Firebase. So what can I do? I can, click on buttons. So this is all HTML on the right. It's actually a single HTML page. And this is just, calling back to my server and doing increments. And so what you see on the left is, this is my Flutter app connected with Firebase and the WebSocket magic of Firebase and Firestore. And I'm incrementing values and getting live updates of my Flutter app.
That's cool.
So let's look at the UI here a second, right? I have my little emojis here. Like they're kind of uniform. So this is a great example, right? Like, let's say we want to change the emojis that we want to show to our users. Again, this is like, okay, well, what's the emoji character that we're storing, and what's the key we want to use in the database? Like these are all these things you want to keep track of. And this is going to listen to things from Firebase and make sure it's showing the right UI. This is going to have to make sure it sends the right request headers, the right query strings with the right queries. Like these are just all these, and multiply that times 100 in terms of deploying an app.
And also, like, the important thing here is like we want to show, like, sometimes you do want to make a really small change, but like move really quick, and this is like
that I change it everywhere, and that's the benefit here. So I have one file here, called constants. I'm really creative, right? And here's the emojis. And actually,
does it have constants?
And Dart?
Yeah, totally.
Oh gosh, yes. Keep your day job. So I switch it here to Rocket. I forget. Actually, give me emoji. What's an emoji you want to do?
Oh, let's do the gold medal. Do you have that one?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I've used that. I don't think I've ever used that one. Let's see what gold star.
No, gold medal. Come on.
Gold medal? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is anti-gravity. Let's see, he's going to do it for me. It doesn't want to do it for me.
It really wants to. All right.
Remove the stars. See if it does it.
Okay. There you go.
It goes.
Gold medal.
Oh.
So I've already
Cooking with gas.
it already started executing and rerunning the scan. Let me go here and do a hot reload on my app.
I love hot reload, by the way.
Isn't it nice? It's
Yeah.
amazing. So look, already the app. There's our gold medal. So this is our Flutter app on the left. I'm reloading my server app. Drum roll. Oh no. You know, you can tell what we're doing a demo, right? Live demo.
I think, do we have agents to debug agents?
We'll try here. Let me restart the emulator.
Yeah. Usually it's pretty fast. So yeah.
You can see, you know,
aside, that's like what I think is cool. So you have emulators, you have this stuff like, I mean, we found a problem in basically 20 seconds, like after we put this in. Under 20 seconds, like 5 seconds. And look, we can redeploy it and like,
really fast iteration speed.
Like,
totally.
That's what makes some of these things so hard, right? Is that, okay, I got to wait for the binary to compile. I have to ship the binary to the device. I got to test on the device. I got to look like the feedback loop.
Yeah,
so fast.
That's what kills developer productivity. And I love like seeing that here with Dart functions and the hot reload functionality.
Yeah,
you can make it easy for a developer to actually get into a flow state.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, totally.
And I mean, I think one of the other cool things now is like to show how not different the deploy step is.
Yeah, so this is local, I see local host and local host here. And, we're now doing gold medals, that's great. We do have this app deployed live, and it's in our booths right now. And so I have sparkles, so if you sit here and wait, you might see someone at a booth go by and scan it. In fact, people watching the live stream right now, scan.
This version you can scan.
You can scan this one, this is open. Let's see if anyone goes through, maybe not. So I'm gonna do probably the worst thing you can do, which is like, let's do a live deploy on air, so no net, and update the deployed app.
I'm game for anything
Let's do
that's
it.
live.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, there you go. QR scans are coming in. Someone click the buttons now.
Nice.
Let's see
they going. Yeah.
There we go. People are clicking. There it goes. Going nuts. Thank you, whoever's playing along at home.
Yeah.
Let's get your gold model live.
And it'll just scale with us.
Yeah. So we're gonna do what do you do? Firebase deploy. So this is one project, one Firebase.json file. We configured the app. We configured the app needs to be compiled to WASM for deployment. The server needs to be compiled to native Linux AMD 64. Let's see what happens. Watching console scroll by is the most exciting thing we do. So in there, our WebAssembly's compiler is running.
It's got colors, so at least that's okay.
It helps a little bit. Yep.
So what's, for folks watching along, what's happening here if you're new to the programming language?
Yeah, so
what are the steps here that we're doing to actually get this to a place where we can deploy it?
So one of the cool things about Firebase is it has like Firebase JSON that configures all the services that you have, whether it's storage, auth, and the database and functions. So with one like deploy command, it's taking everything and compiling it, updating rules and everything in the console, which by proxy is also updating GCP.
So we have, your Dart code is being compiled to WebAssembly, HTML, JavaScript are being bundled up, and that's all being sent to Firebase hosting.
Yep.
And then your server binary, using those same shared constants, combined to that Linux AMD 64 binary, and being uploaded and doing deployments. You see right here, we're now updating the increment, so that's, and the QR code scan logic. So this is now being updated and uploaded to Cloud Run. This might be the slow part. Tension.
But it's crazy because it's already done so much so far, and then there we go.
Oh, wait. There was an error. You know
That's
what? But this already went through. So you're going to time out. If we see if it deployed, let's try. It might have gotten through. There was been a little bit thing with our network here. Let me disable the cache and see what happens. Oh, it didn't go through.
You know what?
It's live.
Here's what I love. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. Yeah. We wanted to show that we weren't like faking it. So.
Well,
yeah.
These things happen, right?
Yeah,
they happen in demos here. They happen on big stages. The thing is, like, let's roll with it. And honestly, I bet you it's probably like a config change that we just have to make.
And honestly, this is a perfect point. So if you look at the docs and everything else, it's an experiment. So this is, we're very early. We want your feedback. So it's actually good to set expectations here, because obviously the Firebase backend support, I don't know how many triggers. There's a few dozen triggers, right? For auth and everything else. So for this release, we don't have any triggers set up. So I know people love, you can hook auth events and Firestore events and run code. We don't have those yet. We just have the normal HTTP functions. That's all we have for this release. And so, but we still have all the backend APIs. So if you, on your backend, you want to talk to Firestore, cloud storage, check the auth tokens, That all works. But if you want to trigger an auth event, we're not quite there yet. But we do think we have enough there to build interesting scenarios and to let people try things out.
That's super cool.
And actually, I think it succeeded.
All right.
I did another one while we talked. Let's see, with my caching disabled.
Hey, there it goes. Hey.
And then let's click on this guy. So this is deployed, hosted app, and now we have your metal. So
that is so awesome. All right. I'm glad that we got it working.
I'm so glad.
You know what? That was, that was like under 4 minutes, like even with a failed deploy. That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin, Roddy, thank you so much. For everyone listening in, please go try Dart Functions out. Give Kevin feedback.
Please.
Kevin really would like to have feedback. I think this is a super cool piece of functionality that we're releasing, and go use that in Firebase.
So Dart.dev, Flutter.dev, it'll be on our blog post.
Yeah.
We'll have blog post releases out.
And we have a talk tomorrow.
Morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for coming on here. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here in a few minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you.